Two friends, same age, same salary, same city, you literally cannot tell them apart. But 40 years later, one retires at 62 with over $600,000. The other is still working at 64, doing the math on when he can finally stop. Same income. No inheritance. No lottery win. The only thing separating them? A $100 monthly habit and one specific moment around year 9 that changes everything. My name is Root. I spend too much time thinking about why one boring autopay habit at 24 quietly beats decades of "I'll start when I make more." If that question has ever crossed your mind, stick around. Because what happens around year 9 is the entire game. Let me show you the math first. You invest $100 every month. You don't touch it. You don't pick stocks. You just throw it into an S&P 500 index fund and forget it exists. At 8% annual return, which is actually below the real historical average, here's what happens. After 10 years, you have $18,000. I know what you're thinking. That's it? That's what I'm waking up early for? Hold on, because this is exactly the moment where 90% of people walk away. And the next number is where things get wild. After 20 years, $58,900. You put in $24,000. The market handed you $35,000 on top of that, more than you ever contributed yourself. After 30 years, $149,000. You put in $36,000. The market gave you $113,000. After 40 years, $351,000. You contributed $48,000 total. The market rewarded your patience with over $300,000 simply for not panicking and selling. Run that same math at the S&P 500's actual long-run average of 10%, and you end at $632,000. From $100 a month. You contributed less than the price of a used car. You ended up with the price of a house in most of America. Yes, inflation matters. At a real 7% inflation-adjusted return, that same $100 per month over 40 years gives you $262,000 in today's purchasing power. Cash under a mattress loses about 70% of its value over 40 years. Not investing isn't playing it safe. Not investing is a slow, guaranteed mugging, just a polite one. So if this is all true, why isn't everyone doing it? The answer is frustrating. People don't start because $100 feels insulting, like showing up to a 5-star restaurant with a lunchbox. You look at the number and your brain says, that can't be enough. That can't possibly matter. So people wait. They wait until they have more, until they're in a better place, until they get serious. But here's what's actually happening when you wait. There's a behavioral finance concept called anchoring. Researchers studied app-based investors and found something almost funny in a tragic way. The size of your first investment becomes the anchor for every investment that follows. Start with $20, and $20 will always feel like your number. Start with $2,000, and that becomes your baseline. So when people wait to start until they can really invest, they're permanently setting their anchor at zero. Their default contribution becomes nothing. Forever. They aren't waiting. They're choosing. And here's the part nobody wants to hear: the reason you haven't started isn't that you can't afford it. It's that starting small makes you feel small. You'd rather feel like someone who's about to invest $10,000 than actually be the person investing $100. Both of those people exist. Only one of them is real. Meanwhile, the people who started with a modest $100 at 24, their anchor is "I invest every month." That's the identity. That's the default. Everything else compounds off that one decision. Okay, now we're at the part one promised you. Year 9. Because there's a specific moment, a specific month, where your investment account stops being a savings account and starts being a money machine. The crossover. Almost nobody talks about it because it's not flashy. Here's how it works. Every year you put in $1,200, $100 a month, 12 months. In the early years, the market gives you scraps. $48 in year 1. about $500 by year 5. You're still doing way more work than the market. In year 8, you put in $1,200. The market gives you about $1,070. You're still slightly ahead. Then year 9 hits. You put in your $1,200. And the market quietly, without any announcement, gives you $1,259. For the first time in your life, your investments earned more than you contributed. Your money is now working harder than you are. You've crossed over and nobody throws you a party. Nothing happens. Your account doesn't send a notification. The SP 500 doesn't call to say congratulations. You don't even notice unless you're obsessively tracking the numbers. But somewhere around month 104, your entire financial future quietly pivots. Before the crossover, you're an investor doing work. After it, you're a passenger in your own portfolio. Every year after that, the gap gets wider. By year 20, your account is earning 4 or 5 times your annual contribution. By year 30, it's earning 10 times. This doesn't accelerate slowly. It accelerates exponentially, which is just a fancy way of saying it gets ridiculous fast. The crossover is why the person on the porch in our intro made it there. He didn't out-earn his friend. He didn't land a better job. He just reached year 9, then year 15, then year 25, while his friend kept waiting for the right time. Let me pause here because this is the part most people skip. The version of you that doesn't start, that version is real. That version exists somewhere in your future. And right now, in their head, they're 58 years old sitting at a kitchen table on a Tuesday night, refreshing a retirement balance, calculating exactly how many more years of work it's going to take. And the answer is always too many. That's not a scary story. That's just what happens when "I'll start next year" gets repeated 30 times in a row. Here's a stat that probably shouldn't be said out loud. The median 401k balance at Vanguard, which covers about 5 million participants, so this is a real number, is $38,176. Half of all American workers with a 401k have less than that. If you invest $100 a month at 8%, you beat $38,000 in just 16 years. A habit smaller than your phone bill, run for slightly longer than a car's lifespan, beats half of working America. Not to be smug. To show you how wide open this game actually is. Most people believe that those maxing out their retirement accounts are sprinting ahead at light speed. According to a 2025 emergency savings survey, 59% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency. 27% have zero emergency savings at all. Your competition is one flat tire away from credit card debt. When you invest $100 a month, you're not playing the same game as the median American. They're playing checkers with overdue bills. You're playing chess with compound interest. The 58-year-old at the kitchen table doesn't have to exist. But they become more real every month you don't start. Deep breath. Here's what actually matters, not what happens to your portfolio, but what happens to you. When you start investing $100 a month, you cross a line you can't uncross. You become an investor. And being an investor is a completely different identity than being a spender, a saver, or someone who's just vibing through their finances hoping nothing breaks. You start reading expense ratios. You notice when a fund charges 0.6% versus 0.03%, and you understand why that matters, because over 30 years, a 1% fee difference quietly steals about $23,000 from your account. That's a wedding. A year of college. Gone to someone who did nothing for it. Your relationship with spending starts to change. $100 stops being a nice dinner out. It becomes $1,060 in future purchasing power 30 years from now at 8%, and once you see money that way, you can't unsee it. Here's a behavioral fact that genuinely reshapes how money works in your head. Research from Empower found that 74% of people believe more money would solve their problems. But when people actually received a windfall, say, $5,000, the happiness boost lasted about 6 months. 6 months. Half of every treat-yourself purchase has an expiration date shorter than a gym membership. If happiness has a half-life, Why keep spending on things that won't outlive the receipt? Now, the objection everyone raises: what about market crashes? It's too volatile right now. JP Morgan ran the numbers. Over the last 20 years, the SP 500 returned 10.6% annualized. Miss the 10 best days, just 10, and you drop to 6.4%. Miss 20 best days, 3.7%. Miss 30, below 2%. Miss 40, negative returns. The catch? The best days cluster within 2 weeks of the worst days. Every time you sell during a crash, you statistically turn off the oven right before the food is done. Time in the market, not timing the market. That's the whole game. Let me introduce you to 3 people, because abstract math is one thing, but humans live in specifics. First is Ayesha, 22, just graduated, working a $42,000 entry-level marketing job. No financial advisor. No rich parents. Just a Roth IRA she opened on her phone in 12 minutes. A $100 automatic contribution that hits the day after payday. Ayesha doesn't even check her account, she forgets her password and resets it twice a year. That's her entire involvement. She never increases the $100. She never gets fancy. She just buys a total market index fund for 43 years. By 65, she has roughly $447,000 at 8% or around $823,000 at the historical 10% average. Tax-free, because Roth. Ayesha isn't a genius. She's just on autopay. Second is Sarah, 35, single mom, 2 kids, just landed her first job with real benefits. Her employer matches 50% of her 401k contribution. She puts in $100 a month. The employer kicks in $50. Her effective contribution, $150. Sarah set this up during her lunch break in a fast food parking lot, phone in one hand, coffee in the other. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't celebrate. She just did it. 30 years of that at 8% gets her to roughly $223,000. Her own money, the part she actually paid, was $36,000. The rest is employer match plus compound growth. The match isn't a perk. The match is a math weapon. Third is Daniel, 50 years old. He'd been saying "I'll start next year" since 2002. What finally moved him? A comment his brother-in-law made at a barbecue. Something about being the kind of guy who never starts. It wouldn't leave his head. 3 weeks later, Daniel opened a brokerage account. 20 years later, at 70, he has about $58,000 at 8% or $76,000 at 10%. Is that a full retirement? No. Daniel is not buying a yacht. But he still beats the median 45 to 54-year-old's 401k balance, starting 28 years late, on the world's most boring schedule. Late is better than never by a 5-figure margin. Here's where things get a little more serious, because this is what most people miss. $100 a month is not a financial decision. It's an identity decision. You're not really choosing what to do with $1,200 a year. You're choosing who you are. You're choosing whether you participate in the economy as an owner or only as a worker. Owners have money working for them while they sleep. Workers trade hours for dollars and start the clock over every Monday. 2 completely different lives, built from one decision made at 24. There's also a quieter cost most people never calculate. If you're 31 and haven't started, you've already left roughly $40,000 on the table compared to the version of you who started at 22. That money is gone. We can't get those years back. But the version of this conversation where you're 41 and still haven't started, that's the one worth preventing right now. The wildest thing about the system we live in? The door to becoming an owner is unlocked. It costs $100. It takes 15 minutes to set up. Brokerage accounts are free. Index funds have expense ratios under 0.1%. Fractional shares mean you can own a piece of every company in the SP 500 for what you'd spend on a bar tab. The door is wide open, and most people spend 30 years Googling whether the door exists, while the people who walk through it at 22 are sitting on six-figure portfolios they barely think about. Warren Buffett said compounding is a snowball. The trick, he said, is having a very long hill, which means starting young, or living a very long time, preferably both. $100 a month is you packing your first snowball. It's small. It barely rolls. For the first few years, it just kind of sits there. But the hill is 40 years long. And if you give the snowball 40 years on that hill, it doesn't end up as a snowball. It ends up as a glacier. So here's what to actually do, because if you've read this far and don't take action, we've both wasted our time. Step 1. Open a brokerage account. Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, any of them. Takes 15 minutes. You can do it from your phone right now. Step 2. Inside that account, open a Roth IRA if you're under the income limit. If your job has a 401k with an employer match, use that first up to the match. Free money goes first. Quick note, if you're carrying credit card debt at 24% interest, pay that down before anything else. No market return on earth beats credit card interest. But still take the 401k match regardless, a 50% instant return beats every debt rate. Step 3. Pick one fund. A total market index fund or an SP 500 index fund. VTI, VFAX, F0X, the names don't matter. They're all the same boring thing. One fund. That's it. Step 4. Set up an automatic transfer of $100 a month, the day after payday, before your brain has a chance to say I'll do it next month. Step 5. Don't check it. Seriously. Once a quarter is fine. Once a year is better. Every time you check, you'll want to do something, and doing nothing is the entire strategy. The strategy is to be a useless, sleeping investor for 40 years. That's it. 5 steps, roughly 20 minutes total. Then go back to your normal life, same job, same apartment, same takeout habits. And in the background, the snowball starts rolling. Remember those 2 friends from the start? Same job. Same apartment. Same student loans. Same everything. The one on the porch at 62 and the one still working at 64. Here's what I didn't tell you, they had the exact same conversation about this. Both of them saw the math. Both of them understood the crossover. Both of them made it to the end. Only one of them set up the autopay. That's the whole game. $100 a month isn't an investment strategy. It's a vote. Every month on autopay, you're voting on which version of yourself wins. Vote enough times in a row, and the version that wins is the one who didn't wait for permission to start. The right time was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now.